Hey guys, we're going to be working on adding channels. So right now we can switch different teams by clicking on our little icons that we created on the side. So now we want to be able to switch to different channels, but to be able to switch to channels we need to be able to create multiple channels. So we're going to add a little icon here that we can click on, and a little modal will come down and we can type in our details for our channel and create new ones. So to start us off, we're going to go over to Semantic UI and get an icon. We're going to be using this add circle icon. I'm going to copy it, and then I'm going to be adding this to the channels component. So if I come down here, I can see I have the channels header here. I'm just going to create an icon, and the name is add circle, and that'll just add us a little icon there. And I'm going to import the icon from Semantic UI. So we can see that pop up over here. So now when I click on this, I want a little modal to drop down. So since this is just a view component, we're going to have a callback or a on click that we take as a prop. So here we're going to say on create on add channel click. So on add channel click, and we're going to say on click, we pass this on add channel click. So now this prop we want to pass in our sidebar over here. So on add channel click, and we want to create something, a function to handle this. And really what we want to do is add state, because now we're going to be creating a new modal component, and one of the props is open. So we're no longer going to have a pure function, but something that requires state. So I'm going to make this a class, and this is going to be the render function now. And these are going to be coming from the props. So I can say this.props and get rid of this. And then this is going to be a class. I'm going to say export default class extends react.component, and then we have this. And then our state will have open create, we'll say open add channel modal, and the default state will be false. So oops, I need to add channel the stuff down here. So close that off, get rid of that, and we'll get rid of that prop for now, and let's just make sure all our curly braces are lining up. So that goes here and that goes here. That looks pretty good, but it's not auto formatting, so something's wrong, and it's because we are exporting default. So we don't want to export default up here because we're doing it down there. Alright, cool. And then down here we're also going to return a modal. So we're going to create a new modal. I'm going to call this the add channel modal. And for now we're just going to import React from React and export default. We'll just export a div that says hi. And we're going to fill this guy in a second. So we'll import that in. So add channel modal, add channel modal, and we're going to render this guy at the bottom here. So add channel modal, and we're going to pass a prop that says open, and we're going to get this prop from the state. So whenever this is true, what we want to do is open the modal. So we'll handle that in our component over there. And then I also want to pass a key, and this is just going to be sidebar add channel modal. And then we want to create a function that says handle add channel click. And all we're going to do is set the state. It says open add channel modal is true. So this is going to be coming from our channels right here. So on add channel click, we're going to call this method that we just made the handle add channel click. So now when I click on that, we should see a modal pop down. So let's implement that modal, which is coming from Semantic UI. I'm going to copy this. And we can delete what we had. We don't need an image for our modal, so we're going to get rid of that. We're going to save this. And instead of having a trigger, we're going to have an open. So one of the props is open, and we can get this from the prop right here. And now let's see when we click on this button if it pops up. Awesome. So we pop up the button and our modal comes up. But now notice when I click away, nothing happens, right? Because we have no way to close this modal now. So click on our little channels over here. And, or not our channels, our sidebar is going to be controlling this. We want to be able to basically have a callback to update this state. So we'll say handle close add channel modal. And what we're going to do is we're going to set the state, and we're going to say, we're same state, but we're going to call it false. And then here we're going to say on close, we're just going to call that function handle close add channel modal. So now over here, I believe there's a prop that should tell us. We can take a look. So on action click, I think it should be close on dimmer click, whether or not the modal should close when the dimmer is clicked. I believe that's exactly what we want. And we do want it to close, but we don't want to control it. We want the on click. So I think it should be on close, on action click. Let's give this a try. This might only get affected when it's actually closed, not when I attempt to close it. So on close. So we're going to grab that prop. So it does take a function. So pop that. Awesome. So it now closes. We also want to put a form in here now. So we'll have a description in here. That's fine. Actually, we're just going to make it content. And the header should be add channel. And then here we're going to just grab an input and a button. And I'm going to have these as fluids, which they should have here somewhere. There we go. So copy that. So we'll put that here. We'll get rid of this search, and we also want to grab a button. Okay. And we'll just say, we'll make this fluid. For now, we're not going to have an on submit and stuff. We'll handle this in a second. We're not going to have an icon. We'll put for placeholder channel name, and we'll say submit or create channel. So let's take a look at what that looks like now. So click on that. There's not really any space here. I think we just need to add a form. So wrap this guy and do our form.fields, and that should give us some nice spacing around everything. So click on that, and we're going to worry about public and private channels in a different video. We also really want to have like a cancel button, and I would like these guys to really be in the same thing. Cancel. I want them side by side. So right now they're on top of each other. I'm going to head over to Semantic UI and just look if they have in their form section. I believe they have a way to make this side by side. And here we go. Just like this. So you do a form group widths equal. And I don't know if I actually do a field as well. So I copied that, right? Yeah. No, I didn't. I thought I copied it. I think I can just do a field. Oh, and we're going to have it down here. There we go. And do form.group. And see what that looks like. I actually don't think this will work because, yeah, the form group needs to be like this. And we might have to do form.button. I don't know if that's a thing. They actually might just have a side-by-side buttons. I don't see any side-by-side buttons, but that's okay. Awesome. This is exactly what I wanted, side-by-side, just like that. So this looks pretty good for our form. Now we actually need to add state and actually keep track when users are typing stuff. So normally we can do this with, for example, just the state that comes with React or MobX, which we saw in the last two. But I just tried out this new library that I really like called Formik for creating forms. So I wanted to show you guys how to use this. So we're going to create this form using Formik. And I'm going to just call this Add Channel Modal. Okay. So to add this library, we just do yarn add Formik. And then what this is a higher order component that's going to wrap our form. So we'll see how this works in a second. I'm just going to hop over here and say yarn add Formik. And now we can add this guy to our form. So this is how we import it. And then we wrap our component right here with Formik. And now we add all the options right here in an object. And here are the different options we can have. So the first thing is, this is basically the initial values of your form. I'm going to get rid of these. So the initial values I want here, I don't really care about the props. We're only going to have a name field, and it's going to be a string. So the initial value of name is going to be a string, and the name that we use here, we also want to put up here, and we use the name prop. So if we were to use email, if this was an email instead of name, we would put email here and email here. It's a little confusing because it's both called name. Okay, so now validate. This is whenever we are typing, it'll actually validate the input, looking at the values that we have in our form. For this, we don't really need to do any validation, so I'm just going to get rid of this. Handle submit. So on submit, we can do stuff. I'm going to get rid of this. We don't know what we're going to do on our submit yet. We're just going to say console.log submitting, and then set submitting equal to false. And what this does is this allows us to just disable our button so we don't submit twice. And we're not really going to have any errors for this form because it's so simple, so I'm going to get rid of that. And we also have access to our props, which we'll be using later. Okay, so then what do I put here? And I also want to just console.log values so I can show you guys what's going on there. So these are basically the little functions that we're doing to control our form, and because we're putting this hardware component on this, we actually are getting past props that we can use to control our form here. And then when we submit, it's going to call this handle submit function for us. So if we come up here, these are the different props that Formik gives us. So I'll paste those in. So values is all the things that we have here as our initial. So it's going to be name, and then as we're typing, it'll update values for us. So you want to set the value of your inputs here. So values, and then whatever you named it. So this is called name. And then on change, you pass it the handle change. And then handle blur, you say on blur. Oops. And we pass the handle. Oh, this is lagging. There we go. Handle blur. And then this is submitting and handle submit are when we click this button down here. And then this cancel, the on click for this, we're gonna call on close because we really just want to close it. We're not gonna worry about errors for this guy, so I'm gonna get rid of that. And then our button only really affects these two guys. So disabled, I believe that's a prop for our button here for Semantic UI. We can double check though. Yep, disabled. So we want to disable these when we're submitting the form. So is submitting, and we'll say disabled when we're submitting. And then on click for my create channel is when we call this handle submit function. So now let's take a look at what is happening. We actually just pretty much completed our form. So I can type. As I'm typing, it's keeping track of the values. So when I say create channel, we see our values right here. If I click cancel, we can get out. We can pop it back up. So very cool. And here's what we're going to do next. We're going to actually handle the submit. So now we only really want this to be a we could just keep this as a view. So right now I'm basically calling this a view component, but I think it's very simple and intuitive to make this a GraphQL component, because what we want to do is submit this to our server over here and call this create channel mutation. But we would need to pass it the team ID. So what we could do is we could either submit the form here, passing in the team ID, or we can put the GraphQL call in our sidebar. And for this, I think it's okay to just put it in our modal, because this will not bog down our sidebar as much. So this add channel modal, it's going to need to know the name of the channel and our current team. So the current team, if you remember, we're getting right here, so current team ID. So we're going to pass that down. So team ID is equal to current team ID. So now my add channel modal up here, we're going to import GQL from GraphQL tag now. Oops, GraphQL tag, and import GraphQL from Apollo, React Apollo. And then with Formik is one higher order component, and we want to add another higher order component, our GraphQL tag here. Now they give you a compose function, which just makes it a little simpler to do multiple higher order components. So I can wrap this with compose, and what I can do is I can just pass as a parameter to this function the GraphQL. So now what's going to happen is this channel modal is going to be wrapped with two higher order components. And now we're going to create a GraphQL for create channel mutation, and we're going to pass that into our GraphQL here. And I'm just going to come over here and create it in graphical. So 80, 81, and we're going to have a mutation, and it's going to have two variables, team ID, and that is going to be an integer, and the name, which is going to be a string. And here we're going to just create a channel, pass the values in, we're also going to be passing in public in the future, or whether it's public or private. For now, we're defaulting that value so we don't have to worry about it. So name, and here we just need a boolean that's going to come back true or false. So we don't need any kind of selection for our return value. So paste that in there. So now in our props, we actually have two things that are going to help us out. So I'm going to expand the props here. We have team ID and mutate. So team ID is coming from our sidebar, and mutate's coming from this higher order component there. So now I can say, I can make this an async function, and I can say const response is equal to mutate, and we're going to await the response, and we're going to pass in variables, and our variables are going to be team ID and name. And name we're getting from this values here. And then I'm just going to console.log the response. Alright, so let's take a look at what we just made. So I'm going to hit channel, and I'm going to say channel 1. So create the channel. So you can look here, it says create channels true. Nothing's getting closed here, and the reason for that is we just have to call on close, and that should close, and we're getting that from our props. And we want to make sure we can why don't we close first and then set submitting to false. That's fine. We're not doing anything with this response, so I'm going to get rid of that. And we noticed our channel popped up there, so that's pretty cool. So let's create channel 2, called create channel, and whoa, what happened? Our channel's not here. Well, let's see when I refresh. Hey, our channel popped up. What's going on there? How come our channel pops up late? Well, what's happening is we're basically not recalling or refetching the data. So the data doesn't know we just created a new channel. So what you can do to basically make it show up is do an update function and update the cache. So our channel 3 that we just made was actually created. We just actually need to update the cache. So that's what we'll be doing in the next video, is actually once we actually make this call to our GraphQL server to update the cache and reflect it here. And then also be able to click on these channels and switch between what the messages are shown. So that's it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching, and as always, the code will be up on GitHub.